Hi, y'all. We are here to talk about the Married to Medicine reunion. Oh my goodness, where are we? We are here to talk about the Married to Medicine finale. Meh, but it was definitely time to wrap it up. I believe that it's been time to wrap it up for a long time, but I think that they had to get that trip out of the way because it's the 10 year and the couples trip is like a staple for Married to Medicine. And so it had to keep on going, unfortunately for everybody. But here we are at the reunion. I mean, the finale, wherever we are. So at the beginning of the episode, they're still on the trip, and they are, I guess, recapping and having breakfast or something from the day before when they were on the boat. And there was a announcement or whatever made that they were basically talking about the fact that what happens in Kima and Alicia's relationship is that they see money differently and they handle money differently. And Kima, is it Kima? I don't know. He handles money better than her, allegedly. And there had been $150,000 that she spent and wasn't accounted for over. At first they said a month and then they said months, but so I don't know how long. In my humble opinion, I can believe that you probably spend $150,000 in a matter of months for sure. A month is crazy, but I'm not as like blown away. Like when I hear them saying it, that's why I'm saying it. When I hear them say like $150,000, I'm like, it cost $1,000 to go out for one weekend. So I mean, and that's to go out. She's claiming that she spent the money on her kids, which obviously it could be more to it, but that ain't none of y'all business. But yeah, I'm not that blown away by it. But whatever, they're discussing it. I'm not mad at them having this discussion though and showing dynamics and really just having, like I said, I feel like we should be diving into Alicia's story more because I really like hearing her perspective on things, and I think she has a unique position to things, something that's adverse to the other ladies. Kind of similar to how Sweet Tea is. Like she comes in and she thinks differently, but she hasn't had much of an explosive experience, probably because they didn't introduce her until 2 episodes ago. But here we are. And I do like that they're talking about it, and Jackie's giving advice and Heavenly's giving advice, like, have your own account. And Heavenly's even saying, I see a lot of similarities between your husband and you and me and my husband because, we do the gender role thing. But Heavenly's like, I kind of do some white lies sometimes to make him think he has more power than he really does. It's just trying to kind of get Dr. Alicia to get on that side of things. And, they're teaching her a finesse of, making your man feel like he's the head of the house, but also still maintaining your own independence and your own power. I think that's a fun conversation. I think it's nice to hear those things. And it shows opinion, everything that I was begging for last episode, last review. So I'm liking hearing this conversation, and it seems like Dr. Alicia is very receptive to it because it's not coming from a weird, judgy place or them trying to poke fun at her like Toya was doing on the boat. So that was enjoyable to watch. They then do like this whole like montage of the good and the bad and a reflection of everything that kind of happened, the past 10 years, and mostly as it pertains to like the marriage relationships. It is, Married to Medicine, so they focus a lot on the marriage aspect, and they're, focusing on the good, bad, and the ugly. And then coupled with that, there was a question from Simone about, okay, who in this group has, brought up divorce in their marriage. I didn't get a chance to clock everybody that raised their hand, but I kind of went based off of, because we talked to, I believe, each person that raised their hand, so I kind of went based off that. And we saw Alicia raise her hand. I don't think Kimma, her husband, raised his hand, but she at least raised her hand. And then they had a discussion amongst the group, of course, but then they gave more context in the confessional. And they talked about their issue being, at the time that divorce was discussed, their issue being more of a team, and she was pregnant with her daughter, I believe it was, and while she was pregnant, her husband was still expecting her to do these gender roles and cook and do stuff, and she's like, I'm pregnant, I can't be doing all that, he needs to chip in more. And they were having a conversation about how, he's definitely learned to become more of a team player and chip in and do more. And she even makes a joke like, yeah, I'm training him well too. So that's another reason why I feel like it's becoming a trigger word on the season, and we're supposed to care about it more than we should. Like, I don't like hearing like men say that they trained women or vice versa, women saying that a man trained them. I don't like hearing it because it sounds weird. It's not my situation to judge, but I'm also open to hear an explanation to it. And like I said last review, I feel like that they've explained it well, and it's out of the window, right? Like Alicia says, it's not as serious as everybody's making it. It's kind of said jokingly, and I say all that to say, she joked about it back and said I've been training him well, and he kind of laughed like, haha, see, in the confessional. So I think that I really enjoy seeing their relationship. I'm sure it has its issues, even as it pertains to communication, right? But it seems like they have an understanding of who each other is and what's going on in their marriage, and they don't let these outside opinions and silliness on the show and the trigger words and all this crazy stuff and the dramatics really affect them. So I'm enjoying that. Then there was Toya and Eugene. I believe that both of them raised their hand, and there was some shock that Eugene had raised his hand. I don't know why. And they have a conversation, but it sounds more so of Toya giving critiques to Eugene and basically ending that segment by saying, but he's been working on it and I'm being open. And I'm like, if we're to believe that Eugene is the cause of all discrepancies, especially as it lends to like discussions of divorce in your relationship, I can't buy that. Like, I won't be buying that. I can't believe that. So I wish that there was more of a two-sided conversation, but we only got Toya, but makes sense. And then, of course, we heard from Simone and Cecil. I mean, we know what happened there. I did see that season where they did the reunion and they had a come to Jesus moment about Simone and Cecil getting a divorce, and it turned things around. I feel like we hear about that a lot, to be honest with you. I understand that it happened. I understand that it's relevant, but oh my God, we hear about it so much. Like, I didn't even have any notes to write about it. Like, we know the story and we get it. I would, like, now that it's been 10 years, maybe let's do a clean slate and not do like all the same flashbacks anymore. Like, I'm really, really, really kind of tired of hearing about that. If it becomes like very, very relevant to something in the future in the storyline, absolutely, let's have a chat about it. But each and every season, we do not need to talk about how Simone and Cecil also almost got a divorce. We know, and we understand, and we get it. Let's move on. It was interesting to me though that, and it didn't look, I could have missed it, but it didn't look like either Jackie or Curtis raised their hand, and we know specifically that they had an issue with infidelity. So it's interesting to me that they didn't raise their hand. I was wondering, when they had that issue, did they not discuss divorce at all? Like, was that not an option for them? Or, maybe they just didn't want to share. I think both are equally available. Like, I would believe either one. Jackie doesn't share anything on the show. So, yeah. And then we get Heavenly saying again, but now in front of the group, that she's like, she appreciates a couple's trips because she learns a lot, and she learned the most this time from Alicia and her husband Kimma. I don't want to keep saying his name because I think I'm mispronouncing it, but she says she learns the most. Everybody seems kind of surprised by it, but she says no, because Alicia's husband and Dr. Damon are very similar in their, like we already said, them doing the gender role stuff, but Dr. Damon is just a lot more quiet about it, so you wouldn't really know, but they kind of see things the same. And they asked, I don't remember who it was, but they asked Dr. Damon to substantiate that as if Heavenly wouldn't know. It doesn't seem like they take anything that Heavenly says for facts. So fine, whatever, that's their opinion. But they asked him, and he says, yeah, that's true. So, I mean, I can see that. I mean, again, I feel like everything with Alicia and her husband has been hyped up for the sake of hype. Like, this season for me has just been a lot of hype and not a lot of substance. So I never really was invested in the whole discourse between Alicia and her husband thing. I just don't think it's as big as everybody's making it. Do I think that he's has some problematic thoughts and says some problematic things? Absolutely, but who doesn't? So I don't, it's just not really like alarming for me, especially because it doesn't seem like it's creating any conflict for he and his wife. So I don't really care. So I kind of missed the beginning of what this event was for, because I'm going to be honest, I was a little tapped out. I'm like, please just end this. But they're having a Met Gala, and from what I understand, it's just to bring doctors together, and I think it's like a fundraiser type of thing, and all of the ladies were expected to make some contribution to this event. And from what I understand, each lady's contribution was supposed to be at least, I guess, per woman $1,000, which isn't I'm just going to go out and say it isn't a lot, especially for them. If I had to pay if I had to contribute $1,000, would I want to? Not necessarily, but I could, right? And I don't, I'm nobody special, so I would assume that these doctors and their wives and TV personalities, the type of money that they make, I would assume that they each have $1,000 to spare. But Toya did not contribute for whatever reason, and I don't know that she necessarily gave a reason as to why, but she kept saying, "Well, I'm giving free wine." I feel some type of way about that because I wonder if it's really free, right? It's her wine and she has a partnership with them, so I'm sure that she gets like a promotional amount of wine that she doesn't have to pay for, right? She can just let people try her and maybe she can have it. I don't know. That's just my assumption. So I don't know that it's like Toya's paying $1,000 for this wine and then handing it off for free. I don't think that they equate. So I do have questions about that, and I'm wondering if anybody can get that information for me. But yeah, Toya, they're having these conversations, and it's like Toya and Eugene and Simone and Cecil, and then there's Heavenly and Jackie and whatever. And they're talking about, Toya didn't contribute, so we don't want her to bring her wine. She shouldn't be able to promote her wine if she hasn't contributed to the event. And Toya's saying, like, why is it a big deal that I didn't donate $1,000 because I'm donating wine? We don't have to talk about that side because I feel like that side is obviously right. In terms of Toya, again, I have my main question of why does she think that $1,000 equates to her wine? And second of all, outside of that, it's an issue because everybody else is donating money and you're not. So that's automatically an issue. Now, you may have a valid reason, which is why that first question exists, but it's going to be an issue if everybody is doing something that you're not doing and you're a part of that group. So I really question a lot what comes out of Toya's mouth. So we're at the event. Looks nice, whatever. I still don't necessarily know what it's for. We didn't necessarily get, in my opinion, we didn't get much talk about it. I don't really know why we were there. I feel like I didn't really see much, but I'll get to that at the end of this event, which ended within about 5 minutes. But we're there, and somebody walks up to Heavenly while Jackie's there, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go to the bar and get wine." And Heavenly says, "Well, don't get any wine from Toya because she didn't contribute to the event." And I'm not mad at her for saying that. You know what I'm saying? Like that probably would frustrate me as well. Like, you didn't contribute, so I probably will be telling people not to drink your wine either. And while that's happening, Toya shows up, and I guess she ultimately ended up bringing her wine, even though she wasn't getting recognized for it or whatever the hell. And she's putting up this banner, and I guess there was an issue where somebody asked her to take down her advertisement, her banner, because she hadn't contributed, but she, argued back, "Well, I brought the wine for free, so I'm going to keep my banner up." And she kind of approached the group about that. Not necessarily the whole group. I think it was just Heavenly and Jackie. And Heavenly and Simone was there too, I believe. And they just didn't back down on it. They're like, and Jackie kind of contributed for once. I forget, Jackie contributed. And they're like, "Girl, like, yeah, you brought the wine, but you should have contributed as well." And Jackie's like, "It's never too late, girl. Like, you can still pay it." But Toya's already made it abundantly clear that she's not going to pay that $1,000. And I still don't have the reason why. And I would love to know. But we do have Anila there. And let me preface this by saying I was a Anila cheerleader. Okay, like, what was she on, 2 seasons? And people been asking since she stepped her big foot on this show, like big toe, excuse me, not Bigfoot. I don't know nothing about her shoe size. No shade. When she stepped her big toe on this show, people were asking, why is she here? She doesn't fit. Da, da, da. And I have always liked Anila. However, when she got on the screen for the first time on the phone with Toya before they got to the event, and they're like shading Quad and talk about how they don't like her, we all know that girl that kind of like has a conversation and is just throwing shade in there for the sake of throwing shade, because Toya didn't even bring Quad up. Anila brought it up. And it's like, you're going out of your way to bring Quad up and throw shade at her. You're not even on this show. And nobody knows why you would have an issue with Quad. Because last season, it was this enormous issue with Toya, Anila and Toya, in every which angle. It was like a star of issues. And they all kind of stemmed from Anila, like Anila's issue with Toya. And yes, Quad got roped into it because she was kicking it with Anila last season, but it didn't have anything to do with Quad. So I have no rhyme or reason as to why Anila would have any issue with Quad and why she would be throwing this very grade school-esque shade at Quad. Is super lame. So now it's even more lame that she's at the event inserting herself, because who are you? Sorry. And you're trying to, first of all, you're jumping in this situation trying to defend Toya, saying, well, she brought wine. Nobody's talking to you. again. And then even later on, she kind of threw shade at Quad again. And I'm like, why are you here? And why are you steady talking about Quad? And I think it's super losery, as we already noticed from Toya. Like, Toya can't stand up against Quad by herself at all. She just cannot. She needs a group of people. Just like when they voted Quad off, she had to ask everybody individually to be on her side. Just like at the beginning of the season when she wanted to be great friends with Sweet Tea because she thought Sweet Tea was going to be against Quad. And now she's picking back up Anila. And she was just threatening to fight Anila last season. So, to me, it's just super losery of Toya, and it just seems like she's weak. And it's just so lame, and I feel like when you have to jump in on, like, with other people, you just don't have a valid, like, if you don't like somebody, you don't want to rock with somebody, and y'all have this long history, then you just don't do it. You don't need all these inner workings and connections of people and banding together. You just don't do it. As a grown person, you just decide, I'm not rocking with that person. But Toya doesn't necessarily have that. And she obviously don't have that $1,000. So Phaedra then gives a speech about this event that I still don't know why we're having and what's happening there. But she announces during the speech, which is pretty much all we got to see of the speech, that Toya did not contribute to the event. She did not donate. She tells the whole party that. And I had no problem with that as well. Like, she said it. Eugene was super upset about it. Super, I hate to use the word emotional because it has such a negative connotation, but he was super something about it. And he addresses Damon about it, and Damon's already not trying to hear it. He's like, don't do that, don't do that. Like, I don't want to hear it. And Damon just did not seem to have a care about it. I guess, Eugene brought it to him for the sake of not addressing a woman, and he wants, Damon to hold his wife accountable, I guess, or admit that his wife was wrong. And Damon did not do that. He's like, for all intents and purposes, he pretty much said I didn't have a problem with it. Like, it was what it was. I was here to support my wife. I'm not in that. I don't care. And I'm not mad at him. Like, she said what she said. I mean, you didn't donate. It is what it is. Like, that's how I feel about it. So I guess we're supposed to feel some type of way that Heavenly did all that to purposely embarrass Toya, but Toya should be embarrassed. Sorry. So obviously this event was for nothing. I think they just needed something to wrap up the season because everybody left early. Obviously, nothing was happening. Obviously, it was very boring. Obviously, we had no reason to be there. And, at the very tail end of the event, I believe that Heavenly was already gone. I don't think we saw her exit, which is weird. And Toya and Anila are headed out the door, and they pass Quad, who finally has showed up. Thank God, maybe we'll get some entertainment. And as they're walking out, Toya, of course, does the confessional where she's like, "Yeah, I walked past Quad. She was coming in. Like, I'm just so unbothered." And it's like, girl, are you? Like, I think you live very, very, very bothered as it pertains to Quad. I think it shows, and I think the entire world knows that, especially you. Thank God we didn't hear from Anila again. Thank you for coming. See you later. So Quad comes in. She looks fantastic. The bob was a little short and stiff for me, but she looked cute. And not necessarily stiff, but a little more thin. So maybe those two go together. But she looked great. Love me some Quad. Thank you for coming because we've been bored. And, she comes in. There's some very not connected interactions that happen, but we do see her, speak with Sweet Tea and Dr. G at the same time. Something I don't know that has ever occurred. And, they have a decent amount of time of a conversation. Nothing's really happening besides the fact that Dr. G cannot keep his eyes off Quad. Like, you saw, honestly, I thought that Sweet Tea was at yoga as much as she was moving her neck back and forth between Quad and Dr. G and watching the interaction. And Dr. G was just staring at Quad the entire time like this. He didn't even blink. And so that was interesting. But afterwards, I guess there was a question of how did Dr. G feel about that, and the way he was explained it was that he didn't know how to feel. It was confusing. I don't know what's confusing about it, but he does go forward to say like I don't really know how I react like in her presence. Like I don't know how to feel about that, but if I never saw her again, that'd be fine as well. And Sweet Tea's reaction is like okay, so I don't even think she buys that. So there's some weirdness to that, and Heavenly has alluded on her review with Carlos King that Dr. G gave some similar energy at the reunion. So it does seem like he's a little bit uneasy around Quad, and I wonder what that stems from, and I hope that we get to hear about it. Other than that, like I said, everybody else was gone because it seemed like we didn't have to have this event in the first place, but we had to wrap up the season, like I said, so I get it. And Quad goes and speaks to Simone, one of two people left at the event, and she asks about the trip that they just went on. And I guess they spoke a little bit about, I think it was Heavenly, and Quad was speaking about, obviously being away from the group and now having a conversation about it. But of course, Simone being Simone, once she gets a point, she is going to keep that point in her pocket. And she's like, well, if Quad wants to have a conversation, she should have called us weeks ago after we voted her off the island like some losers, instead of having a conversation now. Now it's not the time. And so, whatever, we'll have that conversation at the reunion as we knew we would. I'm glad that Quad showed up to the finale. There was no reason for anybody to be there. Honestly, they didn't even need the cameras. I think, honestly, we could have dropped the season off without a finale and nobody would have raised an eyebrow about it, because nothing's been occurring since Quad was voted off. And that's my honest opinion. And it's also facts. I thought everybody looked pretty nice. I think that there was some good conversations had in this finale, but it could have definitely been an email. And I'm already going into the reunion kind of like, because it's 3 parts. There's no way in hell that we need 3 parts for this reunion. No way in hell. And then also Apollo's coming. I understand, Heavenly kind of tried to clean it up. Like, my whole thing is like, Heavenly's acknowledging the discourse with what happened this season, but she's taking it from, which I don't disagree with, she's taking it from a standpoint of, but it's good TV, right? Like, at least we're giving you stuff to try to make good TV. I get it. But I think that she's kind of right up under the point. And the point is that y'all are sacrificing a good show for these attempts at making good TV. You brought Phaedra on because you thought it was going to make good TV. You brought Sweet Tea on with Dr. G because you thought it was going to make good TV. Y'all voted Quad off because you thought it was going to make good TV. And now Apollo's coming to the reunion after a very boring season because you think it's going to make good TV. Y'all are worried about the wrong things. Because none of this makes sense. Like, this is it's all a grasp for TV moments. And that's where you're going wrong. So, we'll see what happens. And I'll be here for the reunion. And we'll have a chat. So, see y'all in the next one.